Let's do a quick tropical update. So we got two storms, one here and one here, and Shift 7. So this one's going to go up this way more or less. There's as you can see, there's a ridge, there's a trough right here, down here, that is going to tend to want to push it that way. And there's a ridge of high pressure kind of building in this area, and that's going to kind of build this way over time. Meanwhile, you have one trough here, one trough of low pressure here, and you have another one coming behind it that's going to go down here. Really, I'm not good at these arrows, am I? Really bad. I'll get better. So this one's not a non-issue. It's going to go up this way. Now, what everybody's focused on is this one here. Let's go to Exhibit A, which is hopefully this one. Okay, so this is the European model for North America, animated. And as you can see, we have this trough of low pressure here. We have a high pressure system over here. And what are we going to see? We're going to see another trough of low pressure. More of an upper level trough, I suppose. Now here it goes, low level. So that's going to come down on the East Coast. And that's going to tend, meanwhile, you have this high pressure system over here that's building from the east. And so the theory goes that that's going to push Lee up. According to this model, it's going to hit the northeast. They deserve it. So, you know, because every time we get hit by a hurricane down here, those weirdos up there, you know, they want to make it a political issue. They're fucking losers. So let them get hit by a hurricane. Let them get destroyed. I approve of this message. So this is the European model, and so it's saying that Lee is going to curve to the north. Now, as far as I know, you haven't heard much about it in the news, but as far as I know, there is an El Nino going on, at least a semi-El Nino. And you see all these headlines talking about they're trying to relate El Nino to climate change, of course. But the point of the matter is there is an El Nino. As we know, an El Nino is when the waters in this area of the country, or of the world, get atypically warm. Okay? And this affects the entire Pacific gyre, as we call it, of currents. You know, the water from the cold water comes down this way. The warm water, it goes down here and eventually goes all the way back. It's a big circle, right? Okay, so this warming of the waters off the coast of Peru really affects the entire, well, as far as they know. They don't know how the details of this because, you know, believe it or not, people, we're relatively clueless on how the climate works. Okay, on how the Earth's climate works. There's a lot of factors coming into play, not only inclusive to the planet Earth, but even beyond the planet Earth, all of which are going to affect the climate. Okay, so they do know that typically in an El Nino year, you see less hurricanes, less tropical activity in the Atlantic basin. And I'm not sure how that affects the Pacific basin. What typically tends to happen in an El Nino year, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just a boiler mechanic, is what you call the subtropical jet stream. So you have a jet stream, the regular jet stream, which in the summer kind of just, stays a little north. But then you have a subtropical jet stream, and that is usually a little further south. I don't know if it's that far south. But typically in an El Nino year, the subtropical jet stream tends to be lower. And we can see that here, sort of. So you're going to have, in the summer, a lot more a lot more, many more upper level troughs of low pressure in this area, dipping further down. And that's what we've seen so far. Now, why that's an issue for hurricanes is that's going to tend to do two things. First of all, it's going to tend to steer hurricanes away from the east coast of the United States, generally speaking. Secondly, because this subtropical jet stream is so far so far south, it's going to tend to shear off the tops of the hurricanes. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I do know that when the upper level winds are going in a different direction than the lower level winds, what you tend to have is that's wind shear, and that tends to disrupt the storm. Okay, the storm wants to the hurricane is basically a natural heat engine. It wants to move the heat up to the top and out to the sides. Okay, and it creates this basically wind engine that operates off of the heat of the ocean. When the tops of the storms get sheared off, that tends to disrupt that whole process and weaken the storm. Also, I'm sure affecting the circulation. So this El Nino event seems to be acting true to form, and it's keeping during the summer, because during the summer you would tend to see the jet stream, the subtropical jet stream, a little further north. Okay, but during the El Nino years, we see them go a little south. And we had some atypical here in South Florida, a rather atypical sort of what you would call a dry front, okay, that came in, and it kind of pushed away all of this humid air, some of this humid air away from South Florida, and gave us a very noticeable cooler and slightly drier weather. Typically I wouldn't expect to see something like that until October, or actually late September, October. So what they think, so the models indicate that not this model, where's the National Weather Service model? I just had it. Okay, let's go. So this is the Weather Underground aggregate of models. It's a very simple one. It just has 5 or 6 models, but they all tend to be in agreement, and they're all expecting the storm to essentially kind of slow down a little bit as it gets to this turn and then turn to the north. Now, as we can see, one of these models, I think it was the European model, had this storm not recurving before it hits the New York area. Fantastic. I would say from a South Florida perspective, this one is not one to be concerned about yet. Keep your eye on it. It has happened before that things change, models are wrong. But I would say that it's fairly, with these northern hemisphere troughs, they tend to be a little bit more predictable. And I would say it's a good certainty that this low-level trough is going to pull this storm up. Just no one knows exactly when it's going to turn, and a slight variation in the trajectory can definitely change the impact a lot. But as far as South Florida is concerned, we look to be, for now, out of the woods. Now, models have been horribly wrong before, but I would say don't go crazy yet. Don't go buying plywood unless you're just one of those people that looks for a reason to panic. Then do what you got to do. So that's that one, and this one out to the west, out to the east, doesn't look so bad. That one is already turning to the north. It's already getting destroyed. So there's that. And then in the general situation, looks to me like we don't have much going on as far as anything off the, there's this one right here. There's a little disturbance right here. Let's look at that. I haven't even looked at that yet. You see a little circulation over here, so that's interesting. A little swirl. This one's interesting, so keep an eye on that little tropical disturbance. It looks like it's far enough away not to get destroyed outright by this tropical system. Yeah, that's a little interesting. Quite a very obvious circulation there. It looks like it's getting some convection. Down here, none of these seem particularly organized. So there's not much particularly organized down here. And then you have a tropical wave coming off of the well south of the Cape Verde Islands. So these are all pretty far south. So anyway, these ones out here, this one looks interesting. This one, a big blob, not as tight of a circulation. So that's where we're at. We'll keep an eye on, I'm sure the experts will keep an eye on this one. We'll come back to this next week and see what's going on with these two. I am out.